Was the last time your mom said I love you to you vocally? I mean, in mostly toxic households, being vocal is never at the present, and actions are always done rather than saying it because most of our parents aren't used to saying sweetest words that a parent would actually other parent would want and would actually say otherwise. Have you also experienced being called by nicknames because of your skin, of what you look like, of your eyes, nose, teeth, or anything that you are actually most insecure about now? When you were a kid, you think calling being called nicknames like Bisoy, I can't think of any nicknames in and nicknames in English. But I would just want to say that having a toxic family culture in our entire life, like the main roots of every problem that we have in our life, always would affect to what we are in the future. Because when you were a kid, you're so used to not open up about your emotions. You're so used to being taken advantage of. You're so used to not speak back when someone asks you if you're okay with it. And when they ask that you are okay with something like this, and you're like getting used to the house that you can't say no because even though they ask you a question like, hey, can you do this for me? And then when you're like, can you do this for me? And then when you say no, they'll get mad. But that was certainly a question with an option. It was some, but if it was some type of command, you would follow it. And that is one simple that was a one common thing that happens in a household. But when it comes to a toxic of household, it's just that you are not allowed to open your vulnerability. And when you speak back about your feelings, they will get mad at you because you disrespect them. You came to that point of have that one certain family member who always attacks you, and then when you were a kid, like for example your dad would always violently say bad things to you, would abuse you, would hurt you badly, and now you're still gaslighted that they did that because it was discipline. You can't force a kid to eat to finish eating. If they can't finish their food, then save it for later, and that's the reason why they get punished and all that stuff. Wait, can I just puzzle that up? Okay, so they get mad at you. They discipline you by hurting you and all that stuff because you couldn't finish a food. And I experienced that when I was a kid, so maybe that's the reason why I took that as an example. But those simplest things that make you think that one wrong move you're a failure, and you know that right now as you are, you know that it actually affected you, and now you're scared of failing because one wrong move, everybody will criticize you, will offend you, will insult you or whatever, because everything, your personality, your way of interacting to others, your social always starts within the home. It always starts with the parents. It is always the parents' responsibility to show what they want their child to be when they grow up. If a child sees an environment where it is always loving, it is always okay to show vulnerability, that you can cry, especially if you're a guy and when you were a kid you were not allowed to cry because they would say, oh, only girls can cry like that, only girls can be that vulnerable and you can't. And as you grow up, that you are vulnerable, everyone is vulnerable, and you learn not to cry because you're a guy. I really hate this stereotypically talking for genders, especially for men, that they should not be vulnerable and they should be those type of alpha male. To the point, alpha males mostly don't respect girls. It's if you're just going to let your child that is a boy, not allowed to cry, not allowed to be not to allow balancing that every day they don't dominate, and dominating like Just because they're masculine doesn't mean they should abuse that. They should learn how to be a gentleman as well, and that is not vulnerability. That is a simple, important manner for every people, not just men, just not just women who needs to be a gentlewoman to be nice. Also a guy. You're not called to create an arrogant, disrespectful alpha male type kid. I'm just telling you that having a toxic household is really difficult, especially if you see a family that is normal. Like, it's normal for you to joke to your mom like that, you know? It's normal for you to open up to your mom or dad like that, you know? I get amazed every time I hear a story like that their dad is always vulnerable to them, you know? You wish to have like that as well. And you just wanna have that kind of affection, you know, from your parents, because even though you would have another partner, would have another friends that to give affection to you, it is never the same when your family does it, because it's your family, of course. They should they should make you feel love at all times, because right environment, good environment, healthy environment that your parents would create and a good and mannerable child or person as they grow up. So I guess we would have a better world if parents were open to be learn to not let their children be some kind of robot to not feel anything, that simple mistakes when they do as a kid is normal, and that they should not be hit immediately, and especially disciplining a child by spanking them, by hurting them a lot, by throwing so many um things like metal or wood to hit your child that is 5 years old uh to 8 years old, and call it some kind of discipline, manipulating them it as discipline. And a bad thing is that um you're teaching your kid the wrong way, so that next time when a person doesn't listen to them, they would hit them, they would hurt them, so that this person that they want to follow them would actually follow them. And that's kind of sad. I wish we break this generational curse, because we don't create a good future for the youth if we continue to teach them these habits, to manipulate, to gaslight, to hurt people just so they could follow them, just so they could do what you tell them. It is important to create a healthy environment for your children. Learn to have the patience, and whatever you show at the house with the kid around, the kid will also do that as well. So for the parents, it's your responsibility to be the role model. Just because they have a bad attitude doesn't mean they got that from social media, from YouTube, from the internet. If you know that, you will know to yourself that you did something wrong. So don't blame it to the internet. Fix your fix your influence. You should be the first influence of your child, not the social media. It's still from you to what they watch and what they should watch. Toxic households. I don't think that will come into an extent even in the near future. I think it will keep happening if we don't pay attention to these normalized situations in the house. Hurting is not always the answer for discipline. Talk to them first.